Hello and welcome. Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Gautam Roy. And coming up in the next hour, at least 100 people killed in twin blasts in Iran's Kerman city during a procession to commemorate the 4th death anniversary of the US-eliminated General Soleimani near his tomb. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi launches high-speed internet in Lakshadweep, operationalized by a submarine optical cable link from Kochi in Kerala. Serbian Election Commission publishes the official poll results. The ruling Serbian Progressive Party, the SNS, has won the contest with 46.75% votes. And India witnesses the birth of its second litter of 3 cheetah cubs born to Asha, one of the female felines brought from Namibia to Kuno National Park under Project Cheetah. Well, first up, 2 explosions caused by terrorist attacks killed more than 100 people and wounded scores of others at a ceremony in Iran to commemorate top commander Qasem Soleimani, who was killed by a US drone in 2020. Iranian state television reported a first and then a second blast during an anniversary event at the cemetery where Soleimani is buried in the city of Kerman. A spokesperson for Iran's emergency services has been reported as saying that at least 100 people have been killed and over 150 others injured. State television later said that at least 100 people, or more in fact, the number put was at 103, have been killed. So far, no group has claimed responsibility for the attacks. Videos aired by Iranian media show dozens of bodies strewn around, with some bystanders trying to attend to survivors and others hurrying to leave the blast area. Let me now take you across in the neighborhood to Tel Aviv. Trent Mar joins us there for more on the Iran twin blasts. Good evening to you, Trent. Although it's hardly one where people in this particular part of Iran are concerned, the death toll from the 2 blasts has been rising ever since they took place. What's the latest that you've got for us?
Yeah, well, the death toll does continue to rise according to Iranian state media. Those latest numbers that we're tracking is 103 people have died and 141 have been injured, but I wouldn't be surprised if those numbers move around somewhat, and that is based on what we're seeing from videos from the scene filmed by Iranian state media and also people with their own phones. There was just a huge crowd of people in this particular part of Kerman city when these explosions took place. Now, we are being told that there were 2 separate explosions. Iranian officials within state media are saying that this was a terrorist act, in their words, and even one is saying they were potentially IEDs, improvised explosive devices, basically planted bombs, in other words. But we don't have a whole lot more other than that. I know, of course, the big question will be who is responsible for this. There has been no public claim of responsibility. Certainly, this does come at a time when tensions in the region are already very high. But I think the fact that it was done on the 4th anniversary of General Soleimani's death at the hands of the Americans at Baghdad airport 4 years ago is certainly, I suppose, focusing the question towards people that maybe have a desire to try and kill people attending an anniversary event for his death. He certainly fought many groups in his time in the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, including ISIS, including Arab separatist groups. So look, I think very early days still yet, and I would exercise caution on trying to guess who this might have been, but it's certainly, well, it represents a major escalation in some ways to the domestic security situation within Iran.
Yeah, certainly, and it's a rested region in any case. But tell us a little bit more about General Soleimani in terms of his legacy, as to who could be the ones responsible behind sort of trying to tarnish it in such a manner.
Well, look, I mean, I suppose unpacking this, in several ways, we could say, of course, there will be inevitable questions about Israel's role in this. There's a natural path there that one could draw based on the fact that he was a senior leader of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, and that is a group that has made no secret of the fact that for them, Israel is a major enemy. But in many ways, many analysts in this region are saying this just doesn't necessarily look like something Israel would do. It's not really a pattern of behaviour we've seen in the past with targeted strikes like the one we've seen in Beirut, planting bombs in a crowded area full of civilians. It's just not something we would be expecting to see. But then, as I say, I mean, ISIS is certainly one group where there may be a form of investigation. He certainly led many fights against ISIS within Iran. There were attacks in Iran by ISIS successfully carried out while he was still alive. And then, as I say, there is that other area around the militant Arab separatist movement who has caused domestic security problems within Iran before. So I think we are expecting a statement in the next hour or so from the Iranian president, who will be going on state TV to make an address to the nation. Perhaps we will be given some more insight there into what the thinking is right now inside the Iranian government. But what we do know is that regardless of who was behind this blast or this pair of blasts, there has been a number of people killed, upwards of 100.
Right. Trent Mar, let's see what more can we get from the Iranian authorities. You said the president will be addressing the nation pretty soon. Thanks for joining us for the time being. Let's now bring in our guest on this issue, Alok Bansal, Director, India Foundation and well-known security expert, joining us. Good evening to you, Alok Bansal. What do you make of what has happened in Iran? What are your first thoughts?
See, firstly, I think Qasem Soleimani has been a revered figure as far as general masses of Iran are concerned. He's seen as one of the most respected persons in Iran. Now, his death anniversary was being celebrated and their blasts have taken place. Now, this shows this could be the handiwork of terrorist organizations, preferably Iran groups. And it's quite likely that this could be groups linked with Al-Qaeda or Islamic State, or it could as well be separatist groups like Baloch separatists or Hawazi Arabs, or even some of the descendant Kurdish groups. There are also a large number of anti-government organizations. The disenchantment with the government has been rising for some time, but this has been a very, very ghastly attacks. There are two attacks, one after the other, and both at a certain distance from each other. So that shows that whoever has planted these bombs had the wherewithal and logistical capability to plant them at two different places, almost 1 kilometer, and on the main path where Soleimani's mourners were actually likely to go. And they have been triggered in such a way that, according to reports, already over 100 people are killed and many more are injured. Many of them are in critical conditions, and as we go forward, we could see the casualties rising. So that is the state which is the thing, and this is, I think, one of the biggest blows. I think this sort of a terrorist attack in Iran has not seen for a number of years. So this is a very, very big attack, and this actually shakes the foundations of the regime, and the regime will have to tackle down. I think we have to wait and watch. No organization at the moment, to the best of my knowledge, has claimed responsibility, and I think we'll have to wait for getting further inputs from Iranian authorities.
How unusual is that? You mentioned that no one has claimed responsibility so far, because normally one sees that, especially when one carries out any organization carrying out such a large-scale attack where such a huge casualty has been inflicted, is eager to claim responsibility and state the reasons for why it's been carried out.
I think there could be two reasons. One could be that the organization which has done is probably assessing the damage. You don't want to take responsibility if you feel that you're going to get negative publicity. The second is that the perpetrators are still in a vulnerable position, and the organization is waiting for them to reach safety and security before they can start taking the claim. Very often what happens is the organizations which are not associated with the blast also start claiming responsibility if they feel that nobody else is taking responsibility, just to take credit and get publicity. Because there are a lot of fringe organizations which feel that by such acts they can get greater publicity and mileage.
Right, and how can we expect the Iranian regime, the authorities, to respond to this? Because we've seen that when it comes to such incidents, Iran has been quite forthright in condemning terrorism as well. Just take us through what you think as to what could the response be in this particular case.
See, I think in this particular case, they would apprehend people, and Iran has been very strict, and they are, in fact, last 2023, the number of executions in Iran surpassed, were second only to China. So it's a country which has given death penalty to maximum number of people. And here people have been hanged for just merely suspicion of being spies for other countries. And this is a very, very major issue. I'm sure Iranians will carry out investigations and will try to find out who are involved. I'm not very sure whether they'll be able to find the main perpetrators, but such an terrorist act cannot be accomplished without a large number of people collaborating. And it's quite possible that those who are collaborating would be apprehended and taken to task.
What can you tell us about the kind of tryst that Iran has till now had with terrorism? What kind of terrorism affects it? Because there are some states like the US that dub it itself as a state sponsor of terrorism as well.
Iran has been facing a lot of anti-regime movements. There is Muttahida Khalq who has been opposing the government for a very long time. In initial stages, there were large number of anti-regime people who have been protesting and have indulged in activities. Now you have Sunni terrorist organizations affiliated with Al-Qaeda and Islamic State. In southwestern province of Ahvaz, there are Ahwazi separatists. In northwest, you have the purrs. And in southwest, you have the Baloch, who have been fighting against the Iranian regime. So there are a large number of people who have been against the government, and the discontentment against the government was very high last year when you saw a lot of people protesting when a girl died in custody. And I think there have been a lot of protests against Iranian regime's strict interpretation of Islamic laws, which had imposed several restrictions on women in Iran. So there is no doubt certain amount of discontentment that you see when you go to Iran as far as masses are concerned. But despite all that, I think this sort of an attack is unprecedented and is coming after a very, very long time. If you remember, immediately after the Islamic Revolution in 79, 78, there were a lot of such incidents. Such incidents were very common in the initial years of the revolution. But for some time now, the regime had stabilized and the opposition had been stymied to a very great extent. So this sort of an attack now is a very, very big event. And maybe it's also possible that there are some external agencies which feel that Iran is indulging in activities inimical to their interests, which have indulged in such an act. In the past, Iran has been very quick to blame Israel and some other countries for such acts within their territory.
Yes, that hasn't happened so far, but let's see what happens when the Supreme Leader addresses the nation as well. That's what we're hearing. That is going to happen a little later in the day. But in terms of since overall the region itself is in a fairly conflict-torn situation at the moment with the Israel-Hamas conflict, that in itself has dangers of spreading. What do you think will this particular incident add to the level of uncertainty in the region?
See, already I think the Western world and Israel have been accusing Iran of backing Hamas. And this could be seen as a retaliation within Iran by these purrs which have been accusing it. So there are a lot of people who could be there. I think we'll have to wait and watch for the address by the Supreme Leader and then take action. What happens?
Right. Alok Bansal, at this moment, that's all I guess we can get from you in terms of how things are developing. It's fairly fluid at the moment. We'll perhaps talk about it later as well, tomorrow or a day after that. Thanks a lot for joining us for the moment.
Thank you.
All right, now as Israel continues its military operation against the Hamas in Gaza, it has intensified its offensive against the Hezbollah and its targets in Lebanon as well. Its chief military spokesperson has meanwhile declined to comment on questions related to an expected retaliation over the killing of Hamas's number 2, Saleh Aruri. Here's more.
The Israel-Hamas conflict is in its 89th day and is raging on with no end in sight. Israel's army released a video on Tuesday that showed its troops striking on the Hezbollah. It said the Israeli jets struck terrorist infrastructure at Yarun in Lebanon. Israel was on high alert for an escalation with Hezbollah on Wednesday after one of the senior Hamas leaders was killed in a strike in Beirut that was widely blamed on Israel and heightened the risk of a broader Middle East conflict. Video from the scene showed smoke coming out of a heavily damaged building with large crowds and fire tenders outside. Meanwhile, Chief Israeli military spokesperson has declined to respond when asked if there is an expected retaliation for the killing of senior Hamas official Saleh Aruri.
I will answer clearly, like I said in the statement. I won't respond to what was heard here or elsewhere. We are focused on the battle against Hamas from the beginning, and we will continue to do so. And we will update the public with instructions when needed, and we change and specify instructions accordingly in the noon, evening and morning, and will continue to do so.
Hundreds of Palestinians protested on Tuesday to condemn Aruri's killing. A general strike was announced for Wednesday, and many shops and businesses remained closed across the territory. This intense fighting began after Hamas launched an unprecedented assault on Israel on the 7th of October last year, with hundreds of gunmen infiltrating communities near the Gaza Strip. About 1,200 people were killed, while the Israeli military says more than 200 soldiers and civilians, including women and children, were taken to Gaza as hostages. Rahul Upadhyay's report for DD India.
And still to come on DD India News are: India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi launches high-speed internet in Lakshadweep. Sri Lanka bans Chinese spy ships from docking at its ports for 1 year. And India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar to visit Kathmandu for the 7th meeting of the India-Nepal Joint Commission on Sunday.
Sir, try berry pulao. Too good. Good, no? Hey, why are you giving him such looks? Ignore tips and use your own mind before you order. Lots of people give unsolicited stock tips. It can be dangerous. Study the company and the risk associated. Invest only after analysis.
Do you know there's an investor protection fund for investors, IPF, but if your trade isn't executed on the exchange or if it's some guaranteed return scheme, then even IPF will not be able to help you.
And what if your broker becomes a defaulter then?
In that case, IPF can provide you with compensation.
Where did you learn this?
NSE's website.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Gautam Roy. Now, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi demonstrated how his government has made the development of remote, border, coastal and island areas its top priority in Lakshadweep, an archipelago of 36 atolls or coral reefs off the coast of the state of Kerala in the Lakshadweep Sea. He inaugurated and laid the foundation stones of projects worth over $1.38 billion on Wednesday, which include a submarine optical cable fiber, which would increase internet speed in the islands by 100 times.
The 3rd of January 2024 proved to be a red-letter day for the people of Lakshadweep. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi visited the 36 atoll archipelago off the coast of the state of Kerala and inaugurated as well as laid the foundation stones of projects worth over $1.38 billion. These include the Kochi-Lakshadweep submarine optical fiber cable, which will bump up internet speed in the islands by over 100 times.
साल 2020 में आपको मैंने गारंटी दी थी कि 1000 दिन में आपको तेज इंटरनेट की सुविधा पहुंच जाएगी। आज कोच्चि लक्षद्वीप सबमरीन ऑप्टिकल फाइबर प्रोजेक्ट का लोकार्पण हो गया है। अब लक्षद्वीप में भी 100 गुना अधिक स्पीड से इंटरनेट चल पाएगा।
India has taken major strides in developing its telecom infrastructure and network in the last 10 years. In 2023 alone, India became the world's second largest 5G network. The feat was achieved in just 10 months of 5G rollout. India had the fastest 5G rollout globally. India's median mobile speeds jumped 10 spots globally in January 2023. Median mobile speeds went from 79th to 69th place. India also positioned itself as a global leader in 6G technology. Prime Minister Modi unveiled the Bharat 6G vision. Industry players like Nokia and Ericsson are establishing 6G labs in India. Telecom operators have been allowed to use renewable energy under the open access route. The Defence Ministry introduced progressive right-of-way rules. New rules facilitate the expansion of telecom infra in defence land and estates. Law was amended to allow telecom licensees to set up temporary telegraph infrastructure. The amended law facilitates rapid repairs and network connectivity. The other key projects unveiled or initiated during the same event included a low-temperature thermal desalination plant at Kadmat, functional household tap connections in all households of Agati and Minicoy Islands, a solar power plant at Kavarati, among others. Addressing the gathering on the occasion, the PM further said that his government has made the connectivity and development of the remote areas of the country a top priority.
बीते 10 वर्षों में हमारी सरकार ने जो बॉर्डर के इलाके हैं, जो समंदर के आखिरी छोर के इलाके हैं, वहां हमने उन्हें अपनी प्राथमिकता बनाया है। भारत के हर क्षेत्र, हर नागरिक का जीवन आसान बनाना।
The PM also mentioned how the government's efforts are dedicated towards developing the tourism and fisheries potential of the Lakshadweep Islands, apart from improving the education and employment of the youth. The Bindu Mondal's report for DD India.
And the people of Kavarati Island celebrated tonight at the Jetty Beach with fireworks after Prime Minister Modi's visit to Lakshadweep and with a plethora of inaugurations and foundation stone laying by the PM for the development of the Lakshadweep Island Union Territory. And we'll be talking about this further with a special guest a little later in the show. But India's Prime Minister Modi, during his visit to the southern Indian state of Kerala as well, took part in a roadshow in Thrissur. Later, the PM took part in the BJP Women's Meet in Thrissur again. Addressing the gathering, Prime Minister Modi slammed the Congress and left for not giving rightful place to women and ignoring the potential of women power. Our correspondent Aisha Khanam reports from Thrissur.
केरला की मेरी माता और बहनों, केरला थिले एंडे अम्मा मारे सहोदरी मारे.
Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi greeted the women gathering in Malayalam before starting his speech. The Prime Minister thanked women for arriving in large numbers to greet him in the land of Thrissur Puram, the world-famous festival.
आजकल देश में मोदी की गारंटी की चर्चा है, लेकिन मैं मानता हूं देश की नारी शक्ति विकसित भारत के संकल्प की सिद्धि की सबसे बड़ी गारंटी है।
Prime Minister Narendra Modi lauded the sportspersons from India's Kerala who brought laurels to the nation. P.T. Usha, Anju Bobby George, actress Shobhana, entrepreneur Beena, cricketer Minu Mani and Maria Kutti, a widow who took on CPM government to fight for her entitled pension, also shared the dais with Prime Minister. The Prime Minister listed a series of initiatives which he called the Modi Guarantee taken by BJP government in past 10 years to help women.
हमने 11 करोड़ परिवार की बहनों को पाइप से पानी दिया। ये क्यों हुआ? मोदी युडे गारंटी। हमने केरला की 60 लाख महिलाओं के बैंक अकाउंट खोले। ये सफलता कैसे मिली? मोदी युडे गारंटी। हमने 30 करोड़ से अधिक मुद्रा लोन महिला लाभार्थियों को दिए। ये कैसे संभव हुआ? मोदी युडे गारंटी। हमने प्रेगनेंसी लीव को बढ़ाकर 26 हफ्ते किया। इसे किसे संभव बना दिया? मोदी युडे गारंटी। हमने सैनिक स्कूलों में बेटियों की एडमिशन का रास्ता खोला। ये कैसे संभव हुआ? Modi Ude guarantee.
The women from various fields who came to hear Prime Minister Narendra Modi were left inspired and committed to cause of nation building.
Aisha Khanam, DD News, Trishur.
The nation of Sri Lanka will not allow any Chinese research ships to enter its ports or conduct operations within its exclusive economic zone for a period of 1 year. The move will reportedly bar the deep water exploration by China's Xiangyang 3 vessel scheduled for the 5th of January in the South Indian Ocean. DD India's Dr. Ahmed Moin Faruqi reports from Colombo.
In a big blow to China, island nation Sri Lanka has banned Chinese spy ships from docking at its port for 1 year. China was trying to dock its ships at Sri Lankan ports under the guise of research. This implies that Sri Lankan authorities would not approve the Chinese scientific research ship Xiangyang Hong 3rd, which was supposed to carry out deep water exploration in the South Indian Ocean from January 5 to May 2024. In the past, Chinese research ships, hydrographic vessels and ballistic missile trackers have reached the Indian Ocean region for surveys and research purposes. The island nation has maintained that India's legitimate security concerns are very important for Sri Lanka. Sri Lankan leadership has on several instances mentioned that the Indian neighbour has put in place an SOP for maintenance of maritime security and visits of such vessels in consultation with many friends including India. The move comes close on the heels of the Indian government urging the Sri Lankan leadership to respect Indian strategic and security concerns. India and Sri Lanka enjoy a vibrant and growing economic and commercial partnership which has witnessed considerable expansion over the years. Economic ties between the two nations also includes a flourishing development partnership that encompasses areas such as infrastructure, connectivity, transportation, housing, health, livelihood and rehabilitation, education and industrial development. India has traditionally been among Sri Lanka's largest trade partners, and Sri Lanka remains among the largest trade partners of India in the SAARC.
The announcement of a year-long moratorium on permitting Chinese research vessels to operate in Sri Lanka's exclusive economic zone is a victory for India's neighbourhood-first policy. It has been pointed out by several experts that the ships have dual use and could be potentially used for surveillance and espionage as well. India has always maintained that it promotes a secure and safe Indian Ocean region through Sagar, that is security and growth for all in the region, and has kept maritime safety and security as a priority. At the same time, Sri Lanka's decision is an acknowledgement of India's legitimate security concerns, which Sri Lanka has on several occasions termed as important for it as well, as a secure India is in the best interests of a secure Sri Lanka. For DD India, Ahmed Moin Faruqi from Colombo.
India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar will visit Nepal's Kathmandu for the 7th meeting of the India-Japan Joint Commission on Thursday and Friday. The India-Nepal Joint Commission was established in 1987 and provides a platform for both ministers to review all aspects of the bilateral partnership. During the visit, the Indian minister will also call on the leadership of Nepal and meet political leaders. Nepal's Minister for Foreign Affairs, Narayan Prakash Saud, held a meeting with former Indian diplomats to discuss Nepal-India relations, seeking suggestions on ways to improve them on Wednesday. In Bangladesh, armed forces have been deployed across the country on Wednesday ahead of the 12th national parliamentary election on Sunday. The army has been stationed at nodal points in other key places in every district. The deployment is being carried out at the request of the returning officers and in coordination with other stakeholders. And still to come up on DD India News Hour, the Japanese quake's death toll has climbed to at least 65 as rescuers struggle to reach worst-hit areas in Ishikawa. Serbian Election Commission has published official poll results which gives Serbia's ruling party, the SNS, the win. And from Europe to Asia, cold wave tightens its grip, blankets the world in frost and snow.
Sir, try berry pulao. Too good. Good, no? Hey, why are you giving him such looks? Ignore tips and use your own mind before you order. Lots of people give unsolicited stock tips. It can be dangerous. Study the company and the risk associated. Invest only after analysis.
Do you know there's an investor protection fund for investors, IPF, but if your trade isn't executed on the exchange or if it's some guaranteed return scheme, then even IPF will not be able to help you.
And what if your broker becomes a defaulter? Then?
In that case, IPF can provide you with compensation.
Where did you learn this?
NSE's website.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Gautam Roy. Let's now take you back to one of our top stories where India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi has unveiled and initiated a number of projects in the Lakshadweep Islands, including undersea optical fiber cable driving high-speed internet services. Joining us to talk about these developments further is Neeraj Mittal, Secretary, Department of Telecommunications, Government of India. He's joining us from Lakshadweep. Good evening and congratulations, first of all, Mr. Mittal. Now, how challenging was the exercise to lay the submarine optical cable fiber from Kochi to Lakshadweep Islands, given the short time frame for completion of the project? You know, the time that the PM mentioned, he promised 1,000 days and it's been delivered within that time frame.
Thank you for, giving me this opportunity. The Honorable Prime Minister actually had launched, this promise to construct this submarine cable on 15th of August 2020 and had given us a target of 1,000 days to lay this submarine across the various islands of the Lakshadweep. In May of 2023, we had actually completed the complete technical evaluation, and by July, we had the acceptance testing done. And there were actually a lot of challenges. As you can imagine, the sea here is, the sea surface at the bottom is very, very rough. It's very environmentally sensitive. There are corals there. We had two COVIDs, we had the COVID season in between. We had two monsoons. We had movement restrictions. We had a couple of court cases. We had, labor and material restrictions. So there were a host of external challenges which actually created a lot of timeline restrictions on us. But nevertheless, our PSU, BSNL, along with NEC Japan, who actually was our subcontractor, did a good job, and we were able to actually roll out the project in time.
Okay, now how does the speed, scale and nature of projects such as these executed by India compared with similar projects in other, both developing and developed countries?
So I think we can be compared best in class to the best in class. The KLI project was a 1,800-kilometer double fiber, 6 core fibers laid over such a large, area at the seabed. At some places it was, a couple of kilometers deep. It was connected almost 11 islands, in a ring architecture. We have been able to give actually the 4G services, which are possibly the first in India, in Lakshadweep. 18 new towers and 19 towers are being upgraded, of which, we have already upgraded almost 10 of them. The 5G rollout in the country has been the fastest. Almost in 1 year, we are servicing now about 100 million users. The data speeds, if you see, in 2014 were about 0.3 GB per month. Now per user, they are about 18 GB per month. So on an overall, perspective, if you look at the scale of the projects and its execution speed, we are the best in class.
Wonderful. Now, what potential does the submarine optical cable fiber project, taken together with the other projects the PM has inaugurated and laid the foundation stones of, hold for the people of Lakshadweep and the country?
So if you look at, when the Honorable Prime Minister announced this project, we had, satellite connectivity limited connectivity for the UT administration. 1.5 gigabits per second were the, speeds at that time. Today we have provisioned about 200 gigabits per second, which is roughly 100x. The reliability is higher. The speeds, of course, are very, very high. The uptime is very high. And all of them have, given the Lakshadweep Island and its residents access to tele-education, telemedicine, business opportunities. We are hoping that, this will start a new, an era of startups which can, come here and, people can actually work in these serene environments. The local economy will grow. There is a tremendous opportunity. The Honorable Prime Minister has said about developing this as an international tourism destination. In addition, the BSNL has provided fibers to the residents. We have got 12,000 households, of which 5,000 households have been connected with fiber, which is possibly the highest in the entire country. So the potential is enormous. The opportunities are enormous. I think it's only a matter of time that Lakshadweep becomes one of the center places of, growth in the country.
Great. Now, in which other ways has the Indian government demonstrated how it has prioritized the connectivity and development of the nation's remote, border, coastal and island areas?
So, we have something called the USOF fund, which has been renamed as Digital Nidhi Fund, and it is roughly about 10,000 crores per year, which we collect from various telecom service operators for precisely this purpose. We are connecting roughly 25,000 unconnected villages through putting 17,000 towers across the country. Some of them will be upgraded from 2G, 3G to 4G. Some of them will be ab initio 4G. We are connecting roughly about 719 villages in the border areas with 607 towers. In the northeast region, Meghalaya specifically, we are spending roughly about 1,000 crores connecting 723 villages with about 528 towers. In Andhra Pradesh, in Arunachal Pradesh and Assam, we are spending roughly 1,200 crores to connect 1358 villages with about 800 towers. There are a host of villages in the border areas in Jammu, Kashmir, Ladakh, UP, Bihar and other states, where we are connecting roughly about 350 villages with about 300 towers. Apart from this, Andaman has already been connected with Chennai to Andaman Nicobar Islands submarine cable, just as we have done in Lakshadweep. It was already launched in August of 2020 at a cost of 1,200 crores, in which we laid 2,300 kilometers of submarine sea cable. And there, after these connectivity has come, at that time there were only 44 mobile towers. Now they have grown to 440 towers. So that shows that if we lay the right seeds, we will have exponential growth in connectivity and usage of this infrastructure by the people.
Great, sounds great. Quite a network being built up. Thank you so much for joining us to talk about what has happened today in terms of bringing Lakshadweep on board as far as high-speed internet is concerned. Neeraj Mittal, Secretary Department of Telecom, thank you for joining us. Now, the full election results on Wednesday handed Serbia's ruling party a major victory in the parliamentary and local vote, which was held on the 17th of December amid protests that triggered thousands of protests alleged. Protesters are coming on the road saying there's been fraud in the elections. The Balkan country's President Alexander Vucic's Serbian Progressive Party has got 46.75% of the ballot, while the main opposition camp, united under the banner Serbia Against Violence, secured 23.66%. Opposition groups have contested the results, and Serbian Progressive Party has demanded an international independent investigation from the European Union. Local residents faced damaged homes and queued for fuel on Wednesday after a major earthquake hit Japan's central Ishikawa prefecture on New Year's Day. There were collapsed and unlivable homes in the town of Kashimaji on the Noto Peninsula, one of the hardest hit areas. Other residences were intact but suffered damage, such as collapsed stone walls. Many gas stations in the town were closed. Authorities have confirmed 65 deaths so far, making it Japan's deadliest earthquake since 2016.
It's race against time for these rescuers who are battling aftershocks and harsh weather. This comes at a time when search for earthquake survivors are underway in full swing. The toll has already risen to 65. The damages are being assessed.
There is still widespread damage. Water is an inconsistent supply. Power remains cut to about 30,000 households. In the town of Suzu, about 5,000 leaders there are saying about 90% of the buildings have been destroyed. There are reports of people in Wajima city are melting snow to get water to drink. And so aid is very badly needed in this very remote cut-off region.
Pope Francis offered his prayers for the victims of quake.
I renew my spiritual closeness to those affected by the recent earthquake in Japan, as well as to the victims of the collision between two planes at Tokyo airport. I pray for their families and for the rescuers.
A total of 62,000 people were evacuated from their homes after the quake to safer places. Japan has been haunted by the memory of a massive 9-magnitude earthquake in March 2011, which triggered a tsunami that left over 18,500 people dead or missing. The 2011 tsunami also sent 3 reactors into meltdown at the Fukushima nuclear plant, causing Japan's worst post-war disaster and the most serious nuclear accident since Chernobyl. Syed Absarul Hassan's report for DD India.
Now, a sweeping cold wave has tightened its grip, blanketing the world's northern hemisphere in frost and snow. Icy winds and sub-zero temperatures are posing challenges for cities and people in the global north. On Wednesday, North India continued to grapple it continued to grapple with the cold wave and foggy conditions. The extreme cold weather also hit Russia's capital, Moscow. Europe's Nordic region was also freezing, as these areas have been registering temperatures as low as -20 and -40 degrees Celsius, respectively. Now, the Viksit Bharat Sankalp Yatra is being undertaken across the country with the aim to inform people about the government's welfare measures by ensuring that their benefits reach the targeted beneficiaries in a time-bound manner. The Yatra has arrived in the districts of Palampur in the northern Indian state of Himachal Pradesh. The local communities have responded to it with great enthusiasm and active engagement. On this occasion, several beneficiaries shared their progressive stories under the segment Meri Kahani, Meri Zubani. Now let's take a look at some of the other updates coming in from around the country. Namibian cheetah Asha has given birth to 3 cubs at the Kuno National Park located in the Madhya Pradesh state. India's Environment and Foreign Minister Bhupendra Yadav announced on social media platform X that this is a roaring success for Project Cheetah, envisioned by Prime Minister Narendra Modi to restore ecological balance. India's Petroleum Minister Hardeep Singh Puri has said India has done good work in the energy and petroleum sector. He also highlighted that India is the fourth largest refiner and is increasing its capacity up to 300 to 400 million metric tons per annum. The National Investigation Agency on Wednesday arrested a key accused in connection with the Karni Sena chief's murder case. NIA also recovered a huge stock of weapons during raids at multiple locations in Rajasthan and Haryana states. Now, with this arrest, the total number of people arrested in this murder case stands at 9. And still to come up on DD India News Hour. The Reserve Bank of India releases draft circular proposing new rules for the declaration of dividends by banks. India's Commerce Minister attends the Atmanirbhar Bharat Utsav event in the national capital, Delhi.
Sir, try berry pulao. Too good. Good, no? Hey, why are you giving him such looks? Ignore tips and use your own mind before you order. Lots of people give unsolicited stock tips. It can be dangerous. Study the company and the risk associated. Invest only after analyzing.
Do you know there's an investor protection fund for investors, IPF, but if your trade isn't executed on the exchange or if it's some guaranteed return scheme, then even IPF will not be able to help you.
And what if your broker becomes a defaulter? Then?
In that case, IPF can provide you with compensation.
Where did you learn this?
NSE's website.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Gautam Roy. India enacted a landmark Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code in 2016, which is an umbrella legislation for insolvency resolution of all entities in India, both corporate and individuals. After 2 tough years of the COVID slowdown, the process of recovering of non-performing assets through the code has been gathering steam. The latest data from India's central bank is a positive indicator. Take a look.
After 2 difficult years of the COVID-19 pandemic, the process of recovering non-performing assets through Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code had started again in India. Since the introduction of the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code in the country, there has been a significant increase in the debt recovery of banks. As per Reserve Bank of India's data, gross NPAs of banks decreased from $112 billion in March 2019 to $69 billion in March 2023. RBI data shows that the net NPAs of banks have dropped below 1% by 2023.
There is now much more fear for a company to default or delay in payment of debt. And especially with the clarity coming through with the Honorable Apex Court, clarifying on the personal guarantees being part and parcel of IBC process, has certainly added teeth to the entire process of recoveries.
The relationship between the borrower and the lending institutions has changed dramatically with the implementation of IBC. And this change is quite positive. If we look at the latest figures, bank loans totaling more than $12 billion have been recovered. Creditors have recovered $35 billion by June 2023. As per a recent report by CRISIL, recovery of $39 billion was seen in 808 IBC cases during the last 7 years. Percentage of recovery under the old DRT and SARFAESI Act is 5% to 20%. Recovery percentage of loans through IBC has been 40% and more. Although the IBC law was passed in 2016, it took time till 2020 to come into effect, and after that a lack of recovery was seen due to COVID-19 pandemic. But its influence is currently being felt on the ground after 2023. As India's economy is on the rise, it can be expected that in the coming days there will be a further increase in the number of cases resolved through IBC. Ajay Mishra's report for DD India.
And the Reserve Bank of India on Wednesday released a draft circular proposing new rules for the declaration of dividends by banks and the remittance of profits to the head office by foreign bank branches. These guidelines will be effective for declaration of dividends for the FY of 24-25 and onwards. There are minimum prudential requirements for the banks to be eligible to declare dividend or remit profits. These are that the banks shall have met the applicable regulatory capital requirement for each of the last 3 financial years, including the financial year for which the dividend is proposed. Also, the net NPA ratio for the financial year for which the dividend is proposed should be less than 6%. And the bank should be compliant with the applicable laws by the Reserve Bank and not have any RBI restrictions on the bank for declaration of dividend or remittance of profits. India's Minister for Commerce, Piyush Goyal, on Wednesday attended the Atmanirbhar Bharat Utsav event in the national capital, New Delhi. During the event, the Union Minister, along with External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar, felicitated the winners of the One District, One Product scheme. While addressing the gathering, Piyush Goyal said that India is the fastest growing economy in the world and that by 2047, India would possibly become a $35 trillion economy.
We are the fastest growing large economy in the world, and all international estimates suggest that for many years to come, possibly for some decades to come, India, which has a young population, which has high management and skills, talent in the young people of India, will continue to be a fast or possibly the fastest growing economy in the world.
American investment bank Goldman Sachs has revised India's current account deficit forecasts for the year 2024 to 1.3% of the GDP from 1.9%. The US bank expects services exports to continue surprising on the upside, while crude oil prices are expected to decline, improving external balances. Goldman Sachs also revised India's current account deficit forecast for 2023 to 1% of the country's GDP from 1.3% estimated earlier. Goldman Sachs has projected an overall balance of payment surplus of $39 billion in FY 2024, but this is expected to decline to $27 billion in the year 24-25. India's economic growth prospects should remain strong over the medium term, with GDP expanding 6 to 7.1% annually in fiscal years 24 to 26. In a report, S&P has said that interest rates in India are unlikely to rise materially, and this should limit the risk for the banking industry. The report said that global uncertainties will have a lesser impact on the Indian economy. India's real GDP rose 7.8% year-on-year in the June quarter, up from 6.1% in the March quarter. The Reserve Bank of India has forecast 6.5% economic growth for the 23-24 and the 24-25 fiscal years. The report further said that the State Bank of India and leading private sector banks have largely addressed their asset quality challenges. Now, as we navigate a world dominated by geopolitical conflicts and heightened tensions, India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar, during the launch of his new book, Why Bharat Matters, in capital New Delhi on Wednesday, spoke about India's economic rise in the last decade and factors contributing to its global significance.
There is a very strong case for re-globalization. I'm very conscious that globalization is for real, it's irreversible, but that globalization in many ways today have evoked very sharp awareness about the need for strategic autonomy in many countries, and that this reglobalization can be done by building more reliable, resilient supply chains, by addressing the digital domain in a more transparent and trusted manner, by de-risking the over-concentrations that have emerged in the last 2 or 3 decades, by creating more engines of growth. My point is really that economic choices cannot be divorced from the strategic context.
And now time to get you all the sporting updates as well. Cricket first, and India and South Africa are facing each other in the second test at Cape Town. Cricket lovers witnessed such an amazing feat from both the bowlers as a total of 23 wickets fell in the space of just 80 overs. In the first innings, South Africa were bundled out for 55, with Mohammad Siraj picking up his career best bowling figures of 6 wickets. India then lost 6 wickets without scoring a single run in the space of 11 deliveries to be bundled out for 153, taking a lead of 98 runs. South Africa then came back to bat for the second time on the same day and lost 3 wickets with 36 runs still remaining to erase the deficit. Fans are expecting another thrilling day at the Test cricket when the heavyweights will take the crease on the second day of the ongoing test. Football now, and West Ham dismissed out on a 4th successive Premier League victory as the festive fixtures concluded with a drab 0-0 draw at home to Brighton and Hove Albion on Tuesday. Pascal Gross should have put Brighton in front shortly before half-time, but his header was saved by Alphonse Areola, while Adam Lallana went close to a late winner. Brighton would have moved above West Ham into 6th place with a victory, but chances were few and far between at the London Stadium, with a point apiece a fair outcome. And that's all we have in this edition of DD India News Hour. But do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X and Instagram. We'll be back with more news and updates as a break here on DD India. I'm Gautam Roy, and from all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India News Hour.